Don't forget, Unit 1 closes tonight. The journal article assignment closes on Sunday. Janie, did you have a comment you could add for us here? I love it.
Yes, so I was going to say, if you are having trouble finding articles, it's difficult sometimes, right? Especially if you are not used to trying to find articles. But the further along you get, you will have to do this a lot more. And it's just a great way, it's a great thing to know just in your life in general, to find really good research for anything that you're interested in learning more about. So that being said, if you are having trouble finding an article, let's say you find just one really great article, you've already found one. I would suggest looking at their reference page and looking at what they used in their research and maybe trying to search for those article titles in the Memphis database. If you are, this is a debated topic, but you don't have to look for an actual side of the debate. You can just look for more general information about the topic in general. It doesn't have to, so let's say, I'm trying to think of one. Okay, so let's say you are doing the legalizing sex surrogacy. If you're just searching for legalizing sex surrogacy, you might not be finding that much. You can try and search just for sex surrogate or sex therapy, or try doing sex surrogate and sex therapy, and looking at it that way. So that could be helpful. Also, I don't know if y'all have been looking at opposing viewpoints. I didn't find as much on that one for the sex surrogacy, but for other topics, opposing viewpoints will actually help give you some different sides of your topic. So I would definitely look there. Let's see, what else?
As a group, if you're having a hard time, working on con points and pro points, but you've done your research, you've got your articles, you could also ask Janie or Kayla or myself to join you all in a group discussion, and we can help you kind of parse out the things that may be pro versus con, right? There's some creativeness to this, right? And so the same article may have 20 different points in it, and you may say, you know what, 5 of these seem kind of pro-ish, and you know what, 10 of these seem kind of con-ish, even though the article wasn't designed to be either way, right?
Yes.
So if you find a general article and you kind of break it down into the points they're making, you guys can be creative about what side you think it belongs on, right? And so the sex surrogacy should be legalized. You could also look at prostitution, right? And what states have said about legalizing prostitution and what have been the outcomes regarding that in other countries when they've legalized prostitution, or Vegas, for instance, in Nevada. You could also look at surrogate partner therapy, right? So there's another term for sex surrogacy, so you could look on that. So that can be helpful. Nazra just raised their hand. I love it. Naz, good job. Go ahead.
So I have a quick question. I was wondering if we could be able to use Google Scholars, because I think it'll give you like a wide range or more general information versus UofM library catalog. It's a good resource.
Oh, yes, it is. I love it. I use Google Scholar all the time, Naz. And the benefit of Google Scholar is that if you don't become a paying alumni, then you might lose access to the University of Memphis online databases. And so, but Google Scholar will always be there. And so learning how to use Google Scholar is a great skill set, Naz. So absolutely, you can find articles through Google Scholar.
Okay, awesome. Thank
Janie made a, oh, sorry. Can I interject?
Yeah,
Janie made an excellent video tutorial that you can view on that subject, and she included that, in fact.
She did. She sure did, Meredith.
And then one more
you guys
point.
should definitely watch Janie's videos. They're all amazing, right? I have other faculty from other departments asking for Janie's videos. I've got to get Janie's permission, but yesterday I went to a meeting where other people were asking, could they have Janie's videos too? And so she does an amazing job. Thanks for pointing that out, Meredith.
I wanted to say, I'm a senior, and Janie, where were you like when I was?
Right. I feel like, yes. We also a lot of times bring in Perveen from the library, but this semester Janie is acting as our Perveen. And I just love that we are able to teach you all these important life skills and to make it applicable to this class and to make it easy, right? It doesn't have to be scary. Learning how to do research, learning how to research for your papers doesn't have to be something scary, right? It's just learning a new skill set, like riding a bike or driving a car. That's all it is. And you just need to work on that muscle, right?
And then one more thing. So some of these may have to do with laws. So when you go, you can look at the databases by subject. So maybe look for law databases and search in there for something too. So just because we're in human sexuality in a psychology department, if some of these have to do with a law in place or a law not being in place, you could look at something like that.
Absolutely. You can look at religion, you can look at law, right? You can look in disciplines that are tangential to psychology that have an impact on the question that you are raising in your group presentation.
Yeah, I looked in economics for mine.
Thank you, Erica. That's a perfect example, right? When you think about legalizing, having insurance pay for everyone who wanted IVF, there's got to be an economic issue there, right? And so being able to speak to that from economy is important, right? When we're talking about legalizing sex surrogacy, the law is involved, right? Also, health is involved, right? Because if sex surrogacy becomes legal, right, and people are engaging in it more, then they need to protect themselves against STIs, right? So who's paying for that protection? Get it? Any other questions about that assignment? Because it's due on Sunday, and I want to make sure that I've answered all your questions and helped you feel more comfortable. Don't forget to get your peer review. It's part of the grade for the assignment, right? And use somebody who's in your group presentation group because they should be learning about the topic anyway. So it's a win-win. Okay, one question really quickly. Has anyone not heard from group members yet? So you as a group have been contacting each other. Has anyone not heard from any group member?
We're supposed to meet at 5:15 tonight. John has kind of taken the lead. Usually I communicate first, but he did, so I'm letting him take over.
Awesome.
But I'm not going back and forth with the other two, but I'm communicating with him to make sure that we're all on the same page. And he said that he hasn't heard back from one of them to confirm whether they can join us at 5:15, but we've rescheduled it 3 times, so we're just gonna do it.
Yeah, just go forward. But you've heard from that other person, you're just not sure if they're gonna come today.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, great. Thanks for that update, Meredith. That helps. Gabriel raised their hand. Gabriel. Okay.
Well, we're in the same group, Gabriel and I, and Nazar, she's online. The only person that last night we had a Zoom meeting.
Oh, good.
And it was Gabriel, Nazar, myself, and Kiara.
Yeah.
So we all met up, and I know that Emily said she had some family issues going on the discussion board, but we did add her to the group meeting.
Great.
But we haven't heard anything else from her. So I will try to reach out to her again today.
Yes, I love it. Write so whenever you're not hearing from people in your group, remember that our lives are all very complex, right? And so reach out, say, hey, we are concerned about you. We wanted to check in on you. We are met once, right? And we wanted to see how we could schedule the next meeting so that you could attend if possible. Let us know. We want to hear from you, how you're doing. We want to support you and see how that goes, right? Oftentimes when we're a part of a group project, we get our hairs on the back of our neck stand up and we're like, this person ain't doing their part, right? But remember, we've been on the other end where we've had a hard time because of our life circumstances, keeping up with schoolwork, right? Or going to work, or keeping up with our housework. So always first approach people, and always approach people with kindness and human understanding, right? And eventually, sometimes that means you also have to draw boundaries, and you guys will have the opportunity to rate one another on your contribution to the group project, right? And so at the end, you'll be able to rate everyone's contribution. And so if someone is not regularly contributing, then you all will put that in your percentage points. And also just let me know how that's going, right? Because I also want to support people who are having a difficult time. So I love that you let us know. We'll reach out as well, Dree, today. So I really appreciate that, because we want to also be that support for that student. And sometimes people in the past have been going through something and it made sense for them to drop out of the group project. And so sometimes that happens. And so just keep moving forward and getting y'all's work done. Thanks, Dree. I thought I saw, Gabriel, did you have something?
Yeah, I'm on my phone right now, so it may be a little bit loud. But I have a question about the article. How in depth would you like me to go? I know it's only 300 words, but research and statistics want you to go into complete detail as best as possible. So how detailed would you like it to be?
So in which portion? The intro, reviewing previous research?
Our first article, I think it was is due on Sunday, first peer review.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, yeah.
Which question?
All of them, like
Okay.
in general. Yeah.
Yes. So Jamie's going to answer this question.
So I would say try to paraphrase as much as possible. Read the results section and really try to put it into your own words as much as possible. We don't need like the p-value. We don't need that. Really just interpret it and let us know like if there was a significant difference, or however you want to talk about it, or however it's written. Just really try to, tell it back to us like you would explaining it to a friend.
Exactly.
When you do need to cite, sometimes there's just such language that you really can't say it in other words. That's totally fine. Then, quote it and cite it. And also when you're paraphrasing, you still cite, of course, but really try and use your own words. It doesn't need to be super specific, like with the statistics and stuff.
Yeah, so you're really summarizing, right? So use this assignment to practice paraphrasing. Read through the intro section, read through it twice if you need to, and then put it aside, right? And start saying the things that you remember from that, right? And type them out. And then you might go back through and add the citations of the research that you remember that you've talked about, right? It's really important to learn to paraphrase and to cite correctly. So you definitely don't want to miss any citations. Does that help, Gabriel?
Yes, ma'am, that helps.
Okay, great. Kyla, you put something in the chat. Is that for everybody or is that for a group member?
It was for a group member. I accidentally pressed
I got
everyone, but
I do that sometimes.
yeah, but it's all good. But we also haven't heard from one of our group members, just one.
Okay.
But I sent her an email trying to get her info, so I guess I'm just waiting for her to respond.
Okay, great. Kyla, can you private message Jamie who that student is? That would be great.
And
Yeah,
I
sure.
did. Dr. Molly and I on Wednesday reached out to, I believe there's 3 people that had not talked to their group yet. I've heard that 1 has now gotten into a group me, so that's great. So maybe we're waiting on other 2, but we have reached out to them specifically and told them to reach out. But yes, please send me that name privately, and we'll try again.
Try again. We keep kind of nudging and encouraging people. So we'll do our best. But it really helps to kind of know. So I really appreciated learning about what's going on with Emily. So I appreciate that. And we'll do our best to get y'all hooked up. But y'all move full steam ahead. You don't want their slowness to impact your ability to get things done in a timely manner. So full speed ahead. You guys have got it. Somebody asked me yesterday or on Wednesday, Dr. Molly, now if we only have 4 group members, do we still have to have 10 of those peer-reviewed journal articles? I said, and I'm embarrassed that I laughed. And I was like, oh yes, you do, friend, you do. You still got to, because you've got to have all of that research to do a great presentation. And so you don't want to miss out on any research. And you guys can break those up. Now, you're not having to read, for the journal article assignment, you have to read the whole article, maybe 2 or 3 times. For the assignment, for the group presentation assignment, you may only decide to read the intro and the discussion, right? And just scan through the methods and the results. But really, to find the information for your group presentation, you may just want to read the intro, scan through the methods, scan through the results, and then read the discussion, okay? So it's not as much reading. So you may find from the abstract, yeah, this is a good article, I wanna read this one. Look through the intro really well, scan that method, scan that results, and look through the discussion. Make sure you're citing all your references too. Now, somebody else asked me, Dr. Molly, well, can we use more journal articles than those 10? Oh, yes, of course. I also would encourage you to look and do a Google search, because there may be organizations, governmental organizations, or universities that are doing research or talking about this important topic. So you may be able to find some references that are not peer-reviewed journal articles that could also be really helpful to your group presentation. And that's great. I'm just trying to get you used to consuming research. And so that's why the 10 peer-reviewed journal articles are required. Because someday you're going to want to find the very best and latest information on a topic that's really dear to you or your family. And I want you to feel very confident that you can do that. Okay?
Love it.
Awesome. Thanks, Kyla. All right. This is the beginning of our discussion on Chapter 5. Hopefully, everyone has gotten an opportunity to start studying for the first exam or have taken the first exam. We always review all of the responses for the exams to see if there are any questions that weren't good quality. So always know that sometimes we may do a little curve and add a few points back if there's some difficulty with a question. So I'm very into making sure that I've done a good job evaluating you. Okay, so just so you know, we have some people that did really well on the exam, but I always look through question by question and make sure that the questions were good quality. The other thing I wanted to let you know is we are starting now on Unit 2, right? So right now we're flipping the page from Unit 1, and here we go on our adventure on Unit 2. Now, Chapter 5 is the hardest chapter for students. It is extremely dense, okay? You learn about sex hormones. You learn about sexual differentiation, how the sex organs differentiate across gestation. You're gonna also learn about puberty and menstruation. And menstruation has 3 different components. It has the hormonal changes that happen, the changes that happen in the ovaries, and the changes that happen in the uterus, okay? This is a very difficult chapter, okay? So I just wanna let you know so that you spend some extra time on this chapter, that when you first go through it and you're like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, this is so hard. Yes, you're right. So lean into that. No, it's okay. If you think this is a really hard chapter, you are exactly right. This is the hardest chapter. They will get easier from here on out, okay? But you're gonna need to spend a little bit extra time on Chapter 5, okay? There are, in this discussion board for Chapter 5, 3 different activities, and all of them are fabulous activities. Today we'll probably only have time to do one of those. I also, before class ends today, I'm going to go through the changes in the menstrual cycle with you so that you can see I will just run through it with you. I run through it, I think, 2 or 3 times in the actual lecture recording. So you'll be able to watch that a number of times through that lecture. But I also just want to run through it with you one more time in case anybody has a question. I'll either do that today or on Monday, okay? Because I want to make sure that I do that at least once where you can ask me live questions. Everybody following? Yes. Okay, excellent. So I'm going to go ahead and, thanks, Gabriel, appreciate that thumbs up. I'm going to go ahead and share our activity for today, which we talked a little bit about last class. What are y'all seeing right now? Are y'all seeing intersex child activity? Hold on, let me reshare. I'm going to stop sharing for a second. I'm going to go back. I also wanted to say something else before I forget. Tomorrow night is our second movie night. And so it's very exciting. We're going to be watching Moonlight. And it's going to be from 6 to 9 p.m. Bring your popped popcorn if you're a popcorn junkie like I am, your favorite movie candy, and your favorite drink. And we will start the movie at 6 p.m. We'll Zoom it together, and then we'll have a discussion afterwards. All right, so, and that's worth extra credit, of course, right? And so you can get your extra credit. Kayla, did you want to say anything about that?
Oh, no, sorry, I didn't mean to take myself off mute. No, it's a really good movie. Like, it's amazing.
It's amazing. It's amazing. And I think that I may have told you that at the end of or in the middle of the Kinsey movie last weekend, I recognized, oh my gosh, the movies that I chose are all super white. And I was embarrassed by that. That's not usually my modus operandi. And so we are going to watch some other much more diverse and multicultural movies. So we're now going to have 5 movies instead of just 3. So you'll have some opportunity if you want extra credit to watch some other movies. And Moonlight was one that we definitely wanted you all to see. So 6 to 9, join me if you'd like, and we'll send out that Zoom announcement. Kayla, will you take care of that for us? Sending out the Zoom, or actually Janie can in our email, the Zoom for, okay, extra credit maybe. Okay, so now we're gonna try sharing screens again. And I think actually I'm gonna start on the discussion board so y'all can see the 3 activities in case you want to do them for this chapter just because of the difficulty of this chapter. You may decide to do some of these activities on your own to try to help you learn the material. So let me screen share again. Here we go. So I am right now at the discussion board, right, for chapter 5. So you all could also follow along there if you wanted to. So like I said, this chapter covers sex hormones, sexual differentiation, and the menstrual cycle. And you can see I even have a note here for our online only asynchronous people. This chapter is very dense, right? And so the first activity for this chapter is really personal reflections on puberty. And this is a really great activity to do to help prepare you for conversations with children that you may have one day, or nieces or nephews, or play siblings that you could get used to having conversations about puberty for same sex as well as opposite sex children. So this is a great activity to do to help you feel more comfortable talking about puberty and the changes that happen in puberty. For activity 2, this activity is on menstruation. There is a handout on in the content area under chapter 5 that's entitled Menstrual Cycle Details. And learning how to understand the hormonal changes, the ovarian changes, and the uterine changes is one of the most difficult topics in this class. And so I really want you all to use this handout to help you become more comfortable with understanding and being able to talk about those changes. And then I invite you to practice having this conversation with a 9-year-old girl. right? Because someday you may be the most well prepared to have that discussion with someone that you love, a young 9-year-old who you're trying to prepare for having the menstrual cycle. And so what would you tell her? What would you include, right? How would you help prepare her? And then I asked you to practice talking about menstruation to 11-year-old boy, right? Because it's not just people who identify as female who need to learn about the menstrual cycle. We all need to learn about the menstrual cycle, right? And so I also invite you to practice explaining how you would do that to an 11-year-old boy. What would you make sure that you include? Would you explain the menstrual cycle the same way to both of those children? Okay, so that's a really important activity as well. And then there's a thought question that we won't go over today, but it's an interesting thought question about how we talk about menstruation, right? And we could talk for an hour about the way that our culture talks about menstruation and the way that it really works to stigmatize the menstrual cycle. I want to make sure that you all guys recognize that. And so I had you all think through that a little bit. The last activity is the one we're going to do together today. And it's on the intersex child. And I told you all we'd be talking more about intersex when we met last class on Wednesday. About 2% of us are born intersex, and that happens because of hormonal differences, structural differences, changes in anatomy, as well as physiology for different babies, right? And the rate is about the same as it is for people who are naturally redheaded or people who practice Judaism, who are Jewish. So today we're going to complete the handout entitled Intersex Child Activity. The reason that this is so important is, one, I want everyone here to be prepared to have a discussion with an intersex child, right? Be prepared to have a discussion with parents of children who are intersex, who are prepared to support children in their community who are born intersex. And so we're going to do this activity together. I also teach you a real life skill in this activity, as I usually try to teach you. And so I'm going to walk you through the handout, and then I'm going to let you all break out into breakout rooms. So let me now pull up. I'm going to stop sharing the discussion board, and I'm going to now share the handout itself. This handout, of course, is under the content section of the chapter 5 in the handout activities under the content area in eCourseWare. So what I want you all to do really quickly is I want everyone to close their eyes for a second. As long as you're in a safe place and you're not driving, right? I want you just to close your eyes for a second. Okay. Imagine that you're living in the 1950s. You're a young high schooler, you go to dances, you go to sock hops, people are wearing great circle skirts, saddle Oxfords. Your life is pretty simple. There's no cable TV, there's no internet, there's no cell phone. You spend time with family at home. You are enjoying the high school experience. You have lots of good young friends, and you meet this amazing young person in your class, and you are so smitten. So y'all start dating. It's a big deal. You get your first kiss. Then you start kind of going to the movies, to the drive-in, and you start making out. And before long, things get a little bit further than you could have imagined. 8 months pass. You realize that about 4 months, oh my goodness, I'm gaining weight. Or my girlfriend's putting on some weight. And so just start dressing a little baggy. You aren't eating any more French fries than you normally do. Then in about 8 months, you realize you're pregnant. So you tell your parents that you're pregnant. Very quickly, your parents talk to your boyfriend and your boyfriend's parents, and before long, y'all are getting married at the house in front of the fireplace. Another month goes by. You're at home watching TV with your parents, and your water breaks. And they rush you to the hospital. They call the boyfriend's parents, and everybody goes in to see you. You are in the room by yourself. No one can be in there with you but the doctors and the nurses. You've been waiting all this time. You finally give your last push, and out comes the baby. And the baby is not talking. The baby is silent. You hear a few pats on the back, and all of a sudden the baby screams, and you're so thankful to hear the baby's voice. And so you say, "Doctor, doctor, is it a boy or is it a girl?" Open your eyes. So we're in the 1950s. You're a young parent. The doctor says, "Congratulations, you've just given birth to a healthy baby." And you say again, "Is it a boy or is it a girl?" And the doctor's quiet. The nurses are quiet. "Is it a boy or is it a girl?" The doctor says, "I don't know. Your baby appears to be intersex." Okay? So in the 1950s, people didn't have gender reveal parties, right? People didn't know what the gender of their baby was going to be. So we're going to go through this activity together. So it's really important that you place yourself back in the 1950s as you were doing this worksheet, because now we would be more informed about a lot of different things that we wouldn't have been informed about in the 50s. So make sure you keep yourself with your saddle Oxfords on and your little circle skirts, right? Or your jeans and your little white shirt rolled up at the sleeves, right? Or your all black clothes, right? Imagine that you're living in the 50s. Consider this question. Will you choose to have surgery to normalize the appearance of your child's genitalia? Okay, so this is the big question for this handout. Will you choose to have surgery to normalize the appearance of the child's genitalia? Before you decide, we're going to go through a decision-making process to consider alternate choices and their short and long-term consequences. For any decision that you make in life, you need to consider all the alternatives and the short and long-term consequences for each one of those alternatives. So I ask yourself to begin just with some general questions. What are some of both the immediate and long-term issues you and your child must face, right? What additional information do you need before you start making these decisions? If you decide on surgery, what are the possible repercussions of this choice? So for any decision that you make in life, you need to be thinking about who all will be impacted by your decision. In this case, a child would be impacted and the parents would be impacted, right? The most. And so you would write for the child, the short-term benefits, the long-term benefits, the short-term costs, and the long-term costs. And then you'll do the same for the parent. If you decide on surgery, what would be the short-term benefits for the parent, the long-term benefits, and the short-term and long-term costs, okay? If you decide to get surgery, what challenges would await your new family? And you'll do the same process for the child and the parent, listing out the short-term and long-term benefits and the short-term and long-term costs, okay? This is the type of process you should go through in any decision that you are making in your life. You should think about who are the people that will be impacted by this decision. They go out on the column. I mean, they go into rows. right? So it could be the child, the parent, could be society, right? It could be teachers, right? It could be different people that could be impacted by your decision. And then in the columns, you would put the short-term benefits, the long-term benefits, the short-term costs, and the long-term costs. Oftentimes when we're making decisions in life, we write a pro and con list. A pro and con list does not capture the complexity of our decisions. Okay? You want to make sure that you figure out all the people involved, the short-term and long-term costs and benefits for all those people, and then for each of the alternatives, right? So in this case, there's two alternatives: to have the surgery or not to have the surgery. In some of your life decisions, it could be that you have 5 alternatives. Then you'd want to do that process for all 5 to fully look at the decision in a holistic way. Does anybody have any questions about that? It's a super important thing to know to go forward as you're making life decisions. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to send you all into breakout rooms. And what I want you to do is to go through this together. Go through this process together, considering the alternatives, but before you begin, I'm going to give you about 5 minutes to brainstorm the first page of the questionnaire about what are the short and long-term things that you need to consider, the issues that you and your child must face, the short and immediate and long-term issues that you and your child must face, and then also what additional information you'd like to know before you start making decisions. So y'all are going to have about 5 minutes in your breakout group to do the first page of the handout, okay, that has the 2 general questions. Then I'm going to bring us back together and I'm going to answer some of the questions that you have. And then I'll send you back out to do the full analysis of your decision. Get it? Any questions before I send you out?
So like in the end of this, we're gonna like make a decision as if we're the parent, or are we just weighing out the costs?
We're just laying out the decision-making process. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about the decision. So you're looking at the benefits and the costs for both things, for both people. You guys ready? So the first thing you're going to do is you are going to answer the first sheet. So let me get you all ready for your breakout groups. Let's see, how many do we need today? All right, here y'all go. See you in a little bit, 5 minutes. Hey, Janie. Hey, Dree, are you going to join the group, baby? Hey, Dree. Okay.
Sorry, I just can't get in. I'm trying to get participation logged and everything.
I wonder if Kayla is prepared to do this with them.
I'm sure she is.
Or,
I mean, she could have, I don't know.
To do the class culture.
Oh.
So I wonder if I'm going to, she just jumped off. So I'm going to try to text her. I can. Let me just FaceTime her, actually. I don't think she's in. Yeah. I don't know where she went. Okay. Maybe she went to the bathroom or something. Hi.
Sorry, my computer fell.
Oh no.
Is it okay?
Yeah, it's fine. I have like a makeshift standing desk,
Uh-huh.
and I went to the bathroom and it fell. So won't leave it unattended anymore.
Are you loving your standing desk?
Yeah, it's just this like styrofoam piece that one of our
You love standing?
yeah, my back has been killing me. So this
Yes,
is
your hip. I've been worried about your little hip.
Yeah, me and Corey are looking at chiropractors to
Good.
see if that'll help.
Good idea. I like it.
Matthew's been having a lot of back problems.
I think we're sitting more than we ever have before.
Mm-hmm.
If I find some cheap chiropractors,
You should come get in the pool. It really helps.
when I have a free day.
I know. I know. I know. It could be in the middle of the night. Like you don't have to, whenever.
Okay, what's Naz's first name?
Nazra?
Yeah, but that's like a nickname.
Oh.
That's not their name on the. And I think I put their nickname on the wrong student.
Uh-oh.
So I don't know how. Like maybe I'll just private message.
Yeah, private message.
Okay.
Nazra, what's your full name?
Okay. Oh, and then I realized that I somehow missed that group that said they hadn't, who was it that chatted with me about that? Kyla.
Uh-huh.
I missed their group member that hadn't reached out yet. So I have emailed her
Okay.
about that.
Okay.
But she also hasn't posted to her discussion boards either, so.
Uh-oh.
Was it accidental call? There's someone else calling.
I'll have to get my trackpad in a way that I can decline the. Okay, there we go. Kayla, are you prepared to lead the class culture discussion?
I can. I was just going to go through the questions like this is our percentages and what do y'all think?
Okay, good. That's great. Okay. And I can chime in here and there, but I have a feeling I'm going to be exhausted by the time I finish this handout.
Yeah.
So I'm going to bring them back in and answer questions now. Yeah. And we may not end up having time, but I hope we do, Kayla.
Okay. Yeah, no problem. If we don't, we can put it in when we're doing our check-in. Or wait, no. When do we do check-ins? Or do we do them on Mondays?
Yeah.
Okay. When we're doing that.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back. Risha, I see your face. So good to see you.
I've been looking a little raggedy lately, so.
What are you talking about? You're looking good to me, girl. You're looking so stylish.
My hair is ridiculous.
Well, to me, you look gorgeous.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Quaisha. Hey, Naz.
Hello.
Hey, everybody. Excellent.
That
All
was
right.
fast 5 minutes.
Well, that was really fast 5 minutes, wasn't it?
Yes,
It was.
It was. So what are some of the long-term and short-term issues you all thought might come up?
Well, for my group, we started to say, like for a long-term issue, the child would go through identity crises probably heavily throughout their lives. trying to figure out what they are or truly are.
Okay,
And
great.
a short-term one we chose was ignorance about the topic, coming from both doctors and parents. But it's short-term because as the child grows and as the parent grows, they'll learn more.
Great. Thanks, Kyla. Those are great. Good job, y'all. Some other short-term or long-term issues you thought might come up?
Well, honestly, we spent a great deal of time trying to figure out the difference between a hermaphrodite and intersex because I thought I knew, and I'm learning what intersex is in this class. So I was like, wait a minute, we better clarify what is intersex again? And then we all kind of did searches, and the initial searches weren't that great. So yeah, it was kind of confusing. And then once we figured it out, we decided, today in 2020 that our child would be confused. We know that someone can identify as a male or a female. And what if we made the wrong decision and went with a boy when it thought it was a girl or vice versa?
Mm-hmm.
And so that would be a long-term cost.
Okay, great. Excellent. Good job, y'all. I love it that you spent some time like going, okay, what is intersex again? Like, do we really understand what we're talking about? I love that. That's fabulous. Yeah, Dree.
Just, I guess, to make sure that we do understand, from what we found, intersex is basically a person just being born with both external organs. But then we compared that to, like, what's the difference between that and a hermaphrodite?
Right. So really for intersex, there's literally thousands of ways that people can end up being intersex. It can be genetic differences, so their chromosomes can be different than XY or XX. And they can have enzyme differences where an enzyme's not working properly, and so their development is different. And so people with intersex can have lots of different ways that they end up being intersex. It can be hormonal differences, protein differences, external genitalia differences, and internal sex organ differences. And so intersex is a very broad term that covers when people don't have the typical male or female sexual development, from hormone levels to protein levels to internal and external genitals to secondary and primary sex characteristics, right? So intersex is a huge term, and we'll talk in more detail about that when we get to the chapter on gender and sex. Okay. Excellent, great questions. Okay, how about some questions? Did y'all have any questions for me about living in the 1950s and having this baby come into the world, and you ask the doctor, is it a boy or is it a girl? Is it a boy, is it a girl? And they say, your child's intersex. Do you have any questions for me?
What would they do if it was a girl? Well, if they wanted to make it a boy, like how advanced was their surgery?
They were able to do some surgical things where they would turn a female into a male. Most of the surgeries done in that time were to feminize. However, that comes into great conflict with the values of the time. In the 1950s, a male son was much more desired and valued than a female daughter, right? Inheritances oftentimes went to sons, right? The sons were given the family business, right? And so there was a lot of cultural pressure to have a boy. The surgeries were better for feminization. Most surgeons would have preferred feminizing. They did mostly feminizing. But families sometimes wanted those boys more than anything. And so really important to them. Later on in the class, you'll meet my dear friend, Darlene, and you'll get to learn a little bit more about what happens when your family decides to make you into a boy, but you've always felt like a girl.
I have a question.
Yes, Dree.
For you.
Oh, Naz can go first.
Okay, Naz.
Okay. What would you have done if you birth an intersex baby
In the 1950s?
in the 50s? Yes.
I have no idea. I don't know how enlightened I would have been. As a white female in the 1950s, I just don't know. That's a great question, Naz. I hope I would have done the right thing. But I really don't know what I would have done out of fear for my child, out of pressures from my extended family. I really don't know what I would have done, but it's a wonderful question.
I think
We
that's
now know best practices. And so in this day and age, we have whole societies, medical societies, intersex societies that have done tons of research, WPATH, to tell us what the best practices are. But in the 1950s, we didn't have any of that. And people weren't talking about sexuality in the 1950s, right? Even if they themselves had read Kinsey's books, they certainly weren't talking about it with their other female friends, right? And so you weren't telling other family members, so you didn't know if there was another family member in your life that had a child who was intersex. There weren't community groups to help you make this decision and know what it would be like if your child grew up intersex without changing their genitals. And so we've just come so far. We have so much more resources now than we did in the 1950s. But Nazareth, it's a great question, and it's one that I ask myself whenever I do this activity. Because there's things that we're deciding on now that we're not well informed about in our culture. And in 50 years, people will go, wow, y'all were really rudimentary, right? And so it makes me really reflect on my decisions and to use this type of decision tool to help me make my decisions, where I consider all the alternatives, all of the people who are impacted, and I do research. My nickname is Researcher Rabbit. That's what my friends and family call me, Researcher Rabbit. Because whenever I make a decision, I try to go to the research, be informed. Gabriel, you had raised your hand.
Yeah, I know I brought up in our breakout group. So I guess I don't remember the name of it in Spanish, but it's pretty much translates to ladyboy.
Yeah.
In the Dominican Republic, where the boys are born and they can't tell their gender, so they're raised as girls until they hit around age 10 through 15.
That's
and then
right.
that's when
They hit
develop
puberty.
their penis and they're like, oh, okay, you're a boy, so this is your transition. Now you're a boy.
That's right. And it's very well accepted there because of this known enzymatic difference. And so ladyboys are well accepted there. Great thing to bring to the table, Gabriel. That's one of the things we'll talk about when we talk about intersex children.
Okay.
Awesome. Thank you. Bringing Spanish to human sexuality.
That made me think about, I guess just to kind of better understand, like with Angelina Jolie, how their daughter Shiloh, to me, that's kind of an example of intersex, because even though she was born a girl, it was like they raised her as a boy.
Mm-hmm.
Is that sort of like?
Yeah, so we generally would call that transgender, right? And so someone was gendered as a female at birth. And that could have been because of their external sex characteristics. Maybe she looked to have, a vagina and external labia and clitoris. And so, but then that Shiloh decided, you know what, I don't feel like a little girl. I feel like a little boy. And so they all decided to support Shiloh. And so that's called transgender. And some people who are intersex do resonate with the term transgender, particularly if they were labeled a particular sex at birth that they did not resonate with them, and they decided later to do surgeries to change their sex. They may say that they're transgender or transsexual, but it's not the same thing. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in the future, because people could be born fully female and sex and have all of the hormonal, chromosomal, internal and external genitalia of female and still feel like male, right? And that would be not intersex, not born intersex, but be transgender, female to male.
But you know what? I'm just going ahead and let y'all know. So my cousin, she actually, he actually went through that transgender role. He well, now he changed his name to O'Shea, but she was born as a female, and she pretty much was taking those testosterone shots, growing a beard, and she actually went and got the surgery to remove her vagina and actually has a penis. Her breasts are gone, so she's flat chested. She went through the whole process of transforming over to a male.
Yes, and so that's so my friend Darlene that you all will hear about did exactly the opposite, but she was born intersex. Her family had decided she should be female, but she did the surgeries, bottom and top surgeries, transition to her own desired gender identity. And so Quisha, thanks so much for sharing that with us. I'm going to, yes, Jamie.
I don't know why I didn't do this already. I missed these, but there's 2 videos that I'm putting under the general extra credit opportunities for Unit 2 that are on YouTube. One of them is a very great explanation of what is intersex. So it explains it very well. And then another one is what it's like to be intersex, and it has people who identify as intersex kind of tell their story and what it's like for them. So I'm going to put those in there. You can check those out if you want and want to learn more.
They're fabulous videos, absolutely. And so definitely, and they're extra credit, right? Write a 2-paragraph reflection and get some extra credit points. So you can watch them for fun, learning more, and you can get extra credit at the same time. Quisha, thanks so much for sharing that story with us. We appreciate that very much.
I have a question.
Okay, so yes.
If that's okay.
Hi, Kyla.
Yeah, it's just a quick question, like a thought question. So could you argue that gender is like on a spectrum for people? Like, yeah.
Yeah, so I think gender is something we are learning about every day. Kayla is super excited, as is Jenny. Yeah, and so we argue that gender is may have some biological underpinnings, but that it's social, culturally constructed, and it's very personal, right? And so we used to only, in the 1950s, there was only boy or girl if you were in the United States and weren't part of a Native American tribe. There are some Native American tribes that have third spirits, which is something different we'll talk about. But in the United States, you were either born boy or you born girl. There was no in between. There was no anything extra. You grew up as that for the rest of your life in mainstream society in the US. Now we recognize that there's lots of people that are non-gender conforming. They just don't feel like they fit in the role of female or male, and they don't want to be limited to that. So they may identify as queer, they may identify as non-gendered, and it's really important to recognize that gender is constructed by society, right? Gender roles are constructed by society, right? Nothing makes people that have vaginas better at doing dishes and cleaning the house and taking care of kids, right, than people with penises. It's what our culture has described them to be, right? Yeah. And so absolutely, we like to think about gender as being on a continuum.
Okay, thank you.
With some people not accepting the term gender. Like, I don't even want to think about gender. It's not a part of who I am. Doesn't mean anything about me. Great question.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm going to send y'all back into the breakout rooms to do the rest of this assignment, right? So you're going to think about the child. Remember, we're back in the 1950s, time traveling. Back in the 1950s, okay? And think about the child and the parent, and think about the long-term benefits, short-term benefits, long-term cost, and short-term costs of having surgery or not having surgery on your infant. Here we go. Hi, y'all. Are those Cheetos?
I was just about to say, oh, this looks so good. And my mouth started watering.
Me too. Me too. Immediately, I was like, oh my God. Are those Cheetos? I need one. I was about to jump right on over the screen, right on through.
Me and Corey don't really eat
Other
food,
side.
we eat snacks.
I'm doing, this Weight Watcher still, y'all, and I'm like getting so disgruntled now. Like it was so easy at the beginning, but I'm like a month in now, and I'm like, it doesn't happen as fast as you want it to. It took me a long time to gain this weight, I guess, but not really. But it's like I just want it to be off. I just want to look different and feel different.
It will come.
It will come. Anything worth doing is worth doing forever.
It's a lifestyle change.
I know.
There is no end destination.
I know. I just want it to be over, and I just want to. I mean, I'm fine to continue eating this way. I'm happy. I just want to see the benefits.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. So anyway, that's my rant today.
Understandable.
How do you think it's going so far?
They're learning a lot.
I do too. I think they're learning a lot. I'm excited. I'm really excited.
Ever since I've had this class, I've been able to this is like one of the biggest pieces of knowledge that I took from this class. And I've shared it with so many people in my family and stuff. And it's crazy. Oh my gosh, their whole eyes open and they're like, wow, I never thought about that.
Yeah.
Or knew, yeah.
Yeah.
Super interesting to see what everyone's where everyone's at.
Yeah.
When we get to a topic like this.
Yeah.
And how willing they are to just I didn't know about this before this class.
Yes.
That's
Right.
awesome.
I love that. I just love that. They're so awesome. God, our students are so awesome. So we have 10 who are coming regularly to these synchronous sessions. I have no idea how the other students are doing. Janie, can you fill me in on how are we doing?
Good. Their discussion posts are great. They are really getting into them. They are fully answering the questions. Yeah, none of them are shortchanging it at all. And almost all of them are keeping up with them.
I noticed Abu did 4 of them yesterday.
Yeah, that's Naz.
Oh.
Yes.
Aren't they coming regularly?
Oh, I hope
Naz,
not.
no. Naz
No,
has only come 2 or 3 times.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I reached, and Uba Naz is the one that we've been having trouble emailing. So I've noticed that she does have a confidential thing on her account. So that's why she does not pop up when we try and do her email. But if you just type it fully out and click enter, it does send. It doesn't get a bounce back or anything.
Okay.
So I was able to reach out. So that maybe that's why she had gotten caught up on those discussion boards, because that's one thing I mentioned in the email to her on Wednesday.
Okay, great.
So yeah, so she's doing good. Everybody's pretty much caught up on the discussion boards, besides a couple people that have been steadily doing them. So I'm hoping they just are waiting on the weekends to do it. I think that's what I've noticed about a couple, since we let them know you don't have to do it on the exact day, but as long as it's done by the end of the unit. So
part of me is should we be being more flexible about the exam dates? No.
I don't think so. I mean, if we're too flexible with it, it just gets too overwhelming, because then you're already moving on to.
Oh, hear me.
I feel like it's so easy to get behind.
What, Kayla?
Sorry, y'all froze, and I was like, is it me? It was probably me.
I was just asking, should I be more flexible on the exams? And Janie said no.
Mm-mm.
You need to have set exams so you can move on with content, and they need to know they need to be moving on with content.
Right.
Yeah, I think you can be maybe a little more flexible in a class that's longer.
Right. Okay.
But this one, like, they need some really good structure.
Okay, good. I just like to check. Okay. Cool. I would love for us all, the three of us, to decide a time when we can do a consultation. We can give CTL some times that we could all meet with them to go through some eCourseware things that we want to know. So if y'all could come up with your joint availability for next week, I thought we could send an email today.
Yeah. So if y'all, whatever time for y'all, I'm good.
Okay.
I have no set plans at all.
8 to 12:30, basically every day except for Tuesday, and I guess Friday as well, because we have every other Friday, you know, we have community meeting. Right. So yeah.
Could you draft an email to who do we want to meet with? Hugh, Dell?
Hugh or Dell. I like them both.
Do we want to do just send it to the general CTL email?
Yeah.
Okay. And just say, hello, we've really enjoyed the foundations class. We have some particular questions we would love to have a consultation about for our class. One of them is regarding our grade book. One of them is about the survey function. One of them is about video presentation. I think it was one. What?
Was there another one?
There was. Maybe not. I know I'm not using virtual classroom. It just doesn't work for me. I don't want to just see 7 of their faces. That's like a no. Like no. Survey. The grade book is the biggest thing. Survey and video presentation.
I think those were the main things we talked about the other day.
I think so too. Yes, if you could send them an email that has all of my availability for next week. Now, I don't know if I put my therapy appointment in there. Hold on.
Yeah.
On Thursday at Thursday 11. Oh, that's the staff executive meeting. Well, you'll see it on there anyway. So Thursday doesn't look like it's a good day anyway. Okay, I need to get them out. So we're not going to have time today for the thing. We'll have to start next class with it.
I'm going to set an alarm on my phone for right when the class starts.
Because the next class is easier anyway. This one is so difficult.
Yeah, it is.
I should have gone in to visit them before I closed them. I wasn't looking. Hey, everybody. Hello, hello. How far did y'all get? Did y'all get done?
I think so.
No, we.
Some ideas.
Yeah, you came up with ideas. That's great. Okay. So if you decide against surgery, what are some challenges that await your new family? Let's start with some of the challenges for the child. What are some of the short and long-term benefits and short and long-term costs for the child if you decide against surgery? So you decide not to do surgery.
In our group, it was me, Jaquisha, and Naz. We were saying if you do against it for the child, one short-term benefit is, the child won't have to go through the recovery process of the surgery. So that was a big one. And so yeah, that was our main short-term benefit for the child if you go against it.
Awesome. What are some long-term benefits for the child if you decide against the surgery?
Me?
Yeah, sure.
Oh, long-term benefits. Did we say that, y'all? Long-term benefits if we went against it.
I think it was the expense of the amount of money that you would spend. But no.
Yeah, so that's a short-term benefit for the parents, right? They're not having to spend a lot of money. Absolutely, Quisha, right? For the parents, they're not having to spend a lot of money for those surgeries.
Yeah. We talked about we talk like as a long-term benefit. It's in terms of like later on down their line, like school and stuff, like they're not as, you know, they don't have confidence issues maybe. They are able to identify within a specific gender, and they don't have to do as much explanation, or it's not as complicated. I think that's one of the long-term benefits that we've talked about with
Or like a long-term benefit for the child is if you don't like automatically assign them a gender when they're born like that, once they are older and they know what they're like, when they like have done the self-reflection and they have like their own identity, they can choose for themselves. So instead of like the child, like the parent being like, okay, we want a boy, so make it a boy, or we want a girl, make it a girl. When the child is old enough and know what they feel, the child can make the decision for themselves. Like, I feel like a girl, I would like to be a girl. I feel like a boy, I would like to be a boy.
Excellent. So that is a great long-term benefit for deciding against surgery at birth, right? To really let the child decide for themselves their own gender identity.
Yeah, it could save them a lot of confusion, identity crisis, or, you know, mental hardships if they later on are able to choose for themselves. Because I mean, it's their life in the long run anyway.
Excellent. Awesome.
Those, if I could interject, and if those are absolute benefits, but I think that when in the 1950s, I'm not sure how much they would have. Today we consider that, but I'm not sure how much they might have, but I'm not really entirely sure how much they would have considered that. But it could have been an accidental benefit for them if they were religious, which they most likely were. If they made them get married, then they could say, well, let's let God decide whether they're male or female and not intervene. And the short-term benefit of that is they would avoid the stigmatism and suspicion of being in the hospital with surgeries. And so they could go home right away, like she said. And so that would be very good. And then, but also I just think that in the 50s, they just would have let God work it out, or listen to the doctor.
Or listen to the doctor, who probably would have asked that they gender the baby.
Advise, yeah, that's what we discussed in our group. I was with Gabriel, Dree, and Jessica. That's what we discussed in our group. We thought that the doctor would most likely have advised it.
Mm-hmm. If the doctor had a surgeon that they had a relationship with that did the surgeries, right? Yeah, I love y'all's thinking. Y'all have done great thinking. I love this. So let's like switch the things. I'm sure y'all fleshed this out a little bit better, but I just want to ask a quick question about what if you decided for surgery, right? What would be some of the challenges, the short and long-term costs for doing the surgery for both parent and child? And I think Erica kind of hit on this earlier.
What did I say?
I forget. Well, what if you chose the wrong gender, right? So what if you chose the wrong gender for the child, the wrong sexual organs, right? That would be really problematic, right?
Yeah, costs for both the parent and the child. I mean, for the child, obviously they'd be the one going through it, and then as a parent, you'd be like beating yourself up, like, oh, I did this to my child, you know, because you would know that you chose wrong, and now your child is gone. It just would be not a good situation for anybody, I feel like.
So one of the things that we haven't yet touched on that I want to just touch on really quickly before our time is up is if you decide against surgery, right? You decide not to do the surgery. What are some of the long-term and short-term costs of making that decision, right? We decide not to do the surgery, particularly for the child, right? What are some of the short and long-term costs if you decide not to do the surgery for the child?
I would say an emotional cost. It could be long term, it could be short term, just really being confused, comparing yourself to maybe your friends, like, well, why do I have two and they only have one? And, just the ridicule from other children and even being an adult, and then, entering a relationship and you might be ashamed of it. And so now you have to open up and tell your partner, hey, this is what I have going on, and then the partner not being as receptive. And now the rejection, that's an emotional cost is definitely attached to that.
Absolutely, Dree. Good job. So emotional costs, right? So even like imagining your child going to spend the night at someone's house, right? Or having a babysitter who has to change the diaper, right? Or going into the locker rooms in PE, right? So there were some real long-term and short-term costs about not having surgery that had to be considered as well. And there still are for kids that we're waiting on, right? So whose job is it to teach people about intersex so that young kids who are born intersex feel accepted just the way they are? Whose job is that?
I believe health educators, maybe.
What'd you say, Naz?
I believe health educators, and them also getting to the parents and just like into communities and just everywhere.
Yes.
I feel like if sex education was taught period in school and like it was known, like, and wouldn't be as stigmatized, or like I feel like if it was taught to us as kids, then we wouldn't be having it. Like just in our group, we were like, man, this is hard because it's not something that's heard of as much or talked about. Like everybody just expects to have a boy or girl.
That's right.
And like especially when you are pregnant, like I've done it twice, and I went to the classes and all that, and they tell you just about any and everything that could go wrong or that could not be as, status quo, I guess you could say. But I can tell you in those classes, they did not touch on this. And it's supposed to prepare you for childbirth and the beginning of parenthood, infancy, and they didn't even speak on this. So I feel like if it's taught as a child, like if you're taught this as a child, or in sex ed, or even in high school when they start teaching you, or when you just start learning about stuff in biology even, then it wouldn't be as big of a deal.
Absolutely, right? So y'all did perfectly, right? Health educators, college students, sex ed teachers, everyone, right? We all have a responsibility, because the way we reduce stigma is acceptance, right? And the way that we get acceptance is by learning information, right? So we have to educate the people around us about intersex. When y'all were in your breakout rooms, Janie shared this amazing thing with me, which if it's okay with you, Janie, I'm going to share it. She says she thinks this was the most valuable thing that she learned in human sexuality class, that she had many conversations with her friends and her family to really try to decrease stigma, to inform so that people would know. And so that when they have a child who's born intersex, there's acceptance in their family already, right? That they're not having to do all the education, that there's not all this stigmatization. And when we do that, we make space for all people, right? And the way they're born. And because it's just a matter of chromosomal mutation. It's a matter of our enzymes not being quite right. It could happen to any of us, right? It could happen to any of us.
Totally out of our control.
That's right. I hope that y'all have a wonderful afternoon. As always, you've impressed me and warmed my heart with your engagement with the content and your willingness to share from your heart and your personal stories. Thank you all so much. Y'all are the best, and I hope this has helped you kind of open your minds and learn a new tool that you can use to make any other decisions in your life, right? All the people that are impacted, the short and long-term benefits and costs for all the different alternatives. If you have any questions, need any help with your peer-reviewed article or your group presentation, feel free to stay. Everyone else, have a fabulous weekend. For those of you who want to, join us tomorrow for Moonlight. I'll look forward to seeing you there.
Great, thank you. Everybody have a good day.
And
Bye.
Karen, oh, so good to see you, Meredith. Thanks for coming. Karen, I apologize for the delay in the emails. We're so thankful that you're able to join us when you can and engage in the class as you can. Taquisha, thanks for sharing your heart today.
Oh, you're so welcome.
I really appreciate that. I think it helps everyone to hear that we know people, we love people.
Oh yeah, and the crazy part about it is he's making it to be known with others. So he's like a motivation speaker down there in Dallas, Texas, and he's actually going to speak with schools, well, before the COVID-19, but he was going around speaking to the schools because they had, I think, like some type of sex education classes down there. And he was actually going down there letting the kids know about his experience by him being born as a female and he transgender over to a male. And he was just letting them know that, it's fine, for kids to interact in that kind of way, whatever that you feel like in your heart, what you are, the gender role that you feel like in your heart that you want to express, like it's fine for you to express it, because actually his dad did not approve him to become a male at all. So his dad pretty much kicked him out the house when he was up here in Memphis. And it was just, I guess he wanted his story to be known, so others won't feel the way how he was feeling, how did his sexual personality from not him dating males, but he was it was like convenient. It was like a comeback. I don't know. It was just back and forth for him to date females or males, but now he's married, so everything working out best for him now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, Taquisha, for people who have struggled with their gender identity, particularly when they were assigned to a gender that they did not resonate with them, it can take really a long time for them to figure out their preferred sexual orientation, whether they're bisexual, homosexual, heterosexual. My friend Darlene, that y'all will hear about, has definitely lived through that, kind of trying to figure out for herself, right? Because finally she's like, okay, now I've kind of gotten my gender identity in a way that I want to express it to the world. And she really had to do some experimenting and some digging to figure out what was her sexual orientation. So that's really common. Thanks, Quisha. We appreciate that. And tell your cousin, way to go.
I surely will.
Please do. We need more people in the world educating our young ones so that they feel accepted just as they are.
Exactly.
Thanks, Quisha.
You're welcome. Bye, y'all. See y'all later.
See you later.
I had a quick question about the Microsoft Word.
Yes, absolutely. Kayla, can you share? And let me open it up so I can let you share. And then if you'll show Dree how to find that.
Yeah, so this is my Gmail. My email. Let me just open this up really quickly. So when you're at your email, you see these dots up here.
You might want to show her like from Memphis homepage to email. You know how like UN mail's at the bottom of, just to make sure.
Yeah, so where is, if you don't know how to get onto your UM Mail page, you can go to the Memphis website. There's a UM Mail icon right here at the bottom. It should just log me in automatically.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So on this page, you should see these little cube dots, like these 9 dots right here. You'll click on that, and you'll see this thing that says Office 365. So when you go there, so you have kind of 2 options. If you didn't have maybe space to download all of the applications onto your computer, you can use them like in the like the web-based version. So like you can open up Word and it'll open it up on like a website. But if you have the space on your computer, you can install Office, and you'll just click there and then install. I already have it installed on my computer, but basically you'll let this run. I'm going to stop it from running. You'll let this completely download. It'll have you open it up depending on what computer do you have. Do you have a Mac or a Windows?
Windows.
Windows. I think it for your computer, it'll download and then it'll tell you to run. It'll either tell you to run or it'll tell you to open. It's a little different for Mac. You have to like drag it to your applications. But you basically let it do that. Let it open up in your folders. Like it'll create a folder in your folders, and you'll be able to open up everything from there.
Okay. Thank y'all. Because I literally just paid for it, but I can go ahead and cancel that subscription since I have it here now.
Yay! Love it.
You.
You are
All
so
right.
awesome.
Y'all have a good one, and I will be there for the movie tomorrow night.
Excellent. I can't wait. So glad.
All right. Y'all have a good one.
Thanks, sweetheart. You take care. Hey, KK.